And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170. The Answer. I am your host, Michael Gaddis of FrontierLoanGroup.com. That's FrontierLoanGroup.com. And we're going to continue our discussion on reverse mortgages. When I give these workshops, as I was talking about in the last segment, one of the things I like to do is before I get started, I'll ask everybody, what have they heard about reverse mortgages? What are some of the myths and misconceptions that they've had? And, basically, one of the major myths and misconceptions that comes up is that you lose title to your house, that basically the lender takes over control and that your beneficiaries are going to lose out on everything. That is 100% absolutely not true. That is not true. You remain on title to your house the entire time. You never lose control, and your heirs are entitled to whatever equity is left after you pass away or cease living in the house for more than 1 year. So you never lose that ability. So I just wanted to state that for the record, because that just seems to be a continuing pattern, whether I'm giving an actual workshop or I'm at a seminar or giving a speech somewhere. The next question I get asked a lot is, how much can I borrow on a reverse mortgage? How is that determined? And that's a great question, because the factors related to how much you can borrow on a reverse mortgage depend on, number one, the appraised value of your house. How much is your house worth? Number two, how old are you? In the reverse mortgage world, the older you are, the more you can borrow on a loan, on the reverse mortgage. Let me give you an example. Every age has a percentage related to it. Starting at age 62, there's a percentage next to it. So in order to determine how much you can borrow on a reverse mortgage, you take your appraised value, multiply it by the factor next to your age. So just to give you an idea, if you're 62 years old, you can borrow 52.4%. So basically, you multiply the appraised value times 52.4%. That will give you your eligible principal balance. That's how much you can borrow. So when I'm at these workshops and stuff, someone could give me their information. I could tell them like in 30 seconds if they have any chance whatsoever of getting a reverse, because if I multiply their age times their appraised value, or their estimate of value, because there hasn't been appraisal yet, and then I look at how much they owe on their house, I can tell if there's any room whatsoever to do the reverse mortgage. So, let me give you an example here. If a borrower is 73 years old and they have a $250,000 loan on a home valued at $600,000. So let me say that again. $600,000 appraised value, and you have a $250,000 loan, and you're 73. So if that's the case, if we take the factor for 73, and the factor for 73 is 59.3%. So we could take 59.3% times 600,000. That tells me that you as a borrower can borrow up to $359,400. So I know that $359,400 is my magic number. So I look to see how much you owe, and what I just told you, you owe $250,000. That means you are potentially eligible, because if I take $359,400, which you can borrow, subtract it from your existing loan of $250,000, that leaves $109,400 left to establish a line of credit, or establish a 10-year payment, or whatever else you want to do. So in the scenario that I just gave you, it is a perfect scenario for basically for a reverse mortgage candidate. So you might be asking yourself, well, how come are there factors related to the ages, and what are they? Just give me some example of them. So I just gave you the one for 62, and I gave you the one for 73. So, for example, if you're 84 years old, 69%. If you're 87, 71.9%. If you're 90 or older, 75%. So why are the percentages, why do they get higher as you get older? Because your life expectancy is lower. So basically reverse mortgages have very smart people, because remember, they allow you to remain living in your home for as long as you live. So you can stay there as long as you want without making a mortgage payment. So they factored in how much they think they need to keep set aside of your equity so that they could basically pay the costs for you to stay there. And so these actuaries have got in there and determined these figures. So that's where they get those numbers. You're listening to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170. I'm your host, Michael Gaddis of FrontierLoanGroup.com, and we are talking about how to determine how much you can borrow on a reverse mortgage. So back to the chart. For example, if you're 70 years old, you can borrow 57.6%. So as you get older, you can borrow more. The equity that the other 43% of that is basically held in a reserve to basically make your payments for you while you're not making payments. So that's why it is where it is, because they determine that you're going to outlive a lot longer than somebody who is 88 years old that can borrow 72.9%. So, it's one of those things that allows you, as you get older, to have more power. And you should be amazed how many people I get, every week calling me saying, can I qualify? Can I qualify? Because reverse mortgages are gaining in popularity. Because especially with people in California where the cost of living is just so darn high. I mean, when you retire and you're on a fixed income, you have, let's say, Social Security and you have a small pension, it gets to be tough to pay your mortgage payment, to pay your utility costs, to pay your car payment, your insurances, your property taxes, your food costs. It gets very expensive to live in California. So by eliminating that mortgage payment, that frees up the cash that you were spending every month to pay for that, to help enhance your quality of life. But not only that, if you have a scenario where you can basically free up and establish a line of credit or get maybe a 10-year payment, you'll get even extra money to help you live in an area that is otherwise might be unaffordable to you, forcing you to live in a different area of the United States. Because for a lot of seniors, that is their only choice. Their choice is either they get a reverse mortgage and live here comfortably, they stay here and they're basically prisoners of their house, basically living paycheck to paycheck, Social Security check to Social Security check. They don't have any flexibility at all, or they have to sell their house and move somewhere else. I mean, that is really the three real choices that occur with reverse mortgages. I had a man one time, a woman, I was talking to her, and she wanted a reverse mortgage, but she said that her son was in charge of the her life, so she wanted me to come over and meet with her son, but she warned me, she goes, he's not very open to this idea. So I went to meet with him, and from the moment I walked in the door, I could tell right away that he was just not going to be the most receptive person. So I decided to get the elephant out of the room right away. And I said, I could tell you don't like the concept of reverse mortgages. He said, no. I said, how much do you know about your mother? And he says, I know everything. She's my mother. I said, do you know about her finances? He says, of course I do. I said, do you really? I said, because I do. I said, when I went through your mother's income and her expenses every single month, I determined that she has she has a deficit of $700 a month. Basically, she had to take $700 more from her savings every single month, and she only had $2,100 left. And I said, so she only has 3 months left before one of three things happens. Either you help her or support her in her decision to get a reverse mortgage. You either have to maybe you're going to have to give her $700 a month to help support her, because right now she doesn't have the $700 a month and her quality of life isn't even great at that level. Or number three, I said she's going to have to sell her house and she's going to have to move in with you. So you have three choices. Which choice do you want? Which choice do you think they took, Paul? Which choice?
One.
Absolutely, he did. Tell me more about that reverse mortgage is what he said. It's just people are stubborn and sometimes they just need to understand what a reverse mortgage can do for you. Well, Paul's now telling me that we're out of time today, so I'll be back here next Monday night at 7 p.m. to talk about anything and everything related to real estate. In the meantime, if you need to get in touch with me, go to michaelgaddis.com or frontierloangroup.com. I'll see you again next Monday night at 7 p.m.